Hello and welcome to all the Gen AI Rockstar students as we continue our journey into AI graphic design and video. Up next is Module 13 of 17, DJ Studio. Let's explore how this dynamic tool can help you create and mix audio tracks, adding a unique edge to your multimedia projects. Ready to make some creative noise? Let's get started. Presented by Asia Pacific Adventures and Royal Oxford University.
Hello everyone, this is the Basic DJ Studio course, where we'll be discussing how to create a mix utilizing local files, your own music, right here on DJ Studio. The first thing you need to do is open up your DJ Studio app, which you can download from the Downloads page of the DJ Studio website. Here at the homepage, you'll be presented with a variety of options. We'll concentrate on this button right here, Start New Mix. Here, you'll see the option to create a new mix with local files or YouTube. For this round, we'll click on the Local Files button, where you can import a variety of audio files into your DJ Studio library. Once you finish downloading your tracks, hit the Add Tracks button over here, and you'll open up this window. Now, those of you who use DJ programs can easily import your libraries into DJ Studio, which helps you look up the tracks you want to mix. When you find the songs you want, you can import them by hitting the circular plus sign beside each song and having DJ Studio analyze them. But for those of you who don't DJ, don't afraid, because you can also import the music straight from the containing folder. Now, it's important to mention that when you add tracks into your project, try as much as possible to have a concept of a mix in mind so you don't end up with a massively bloated library or a mix with continuously jumping BPMs. Having too much in there will cause DJ Studio to run slower. And let's face it, having a hodgepodge of different genres and BPMs isn't going to give you anything remotely close to a smooth mix. For this module, we'll utilize the latter method and import the tracks you just downloaded straight from the Downloads folder. You'll see that you can either select the tracks from the window on DJ Studio or simply drag and drop them into the program. Here's how you can import the tracks, and here's how to drag and drop them. Once your tracks are in, you can see that each song has already been given a pre-selected type of transition, while down below, you can see that DJ Studio has done some of the heavy lifting and used its algorithm to try to string the tracks together in the best way possible to create a smooth, seamless mix for you. However, these songs are not harmonically mixed, meaning there could still be some dissonance while transitioning between tracks. Dissonance is essentially when two different notes don't sound good together, and there's a chance that this could be the case for our imported tracks. That's why we're going to utilize DJ Studio's biggest feature, AutoMix. AutoMix essentially uses DJ Studio's built-in algorithm to find the best possible combinations for your songs so that they sound as sonically in sync as possible. Once you finish your project, here we can see the big yellow button that says AutoMix. Once we click it, we'll see a new window pop up detailing some things about AutoMix. Anyway, once we click AutoMix, DJ Studio will do some heavy lifting to find the most stable, harmonized order for your mix. It even tells you how many mix combinations it's made to find the best one. Anyway, hit Finish, and we'll see that DJ Studio has rearranged the songs by key, and also, to an extent, by BPM. From here, we can listen to what DJ Studio has done on the timeline by clicking around here and pressing the play button in the middle. This way, you can check the transitions and see if they're up to your liking. From here, we can also play around with the transition types to find the one that best suits the swap way between songs. Now, given that different songs have very different structures, it's always wise to check on your tracks and their transitions before moving forward. So to do that, let's have a quick look at the timeline here. Here we can select a transition block to tinker around with. We can also play this transition by pressing the play button down in the middle. Now, what if our transition is aligned but timed at the wrong spot? Well, if you left-click on the transition block, you can actually drag it around the timeline until the beat snaps at the right transition point. You also have the option to shorten or lengthen the transition point by hovering your cursor over the transition block and clicking on these 4 dots here. If you want to hear the transition again and again, simply press the repeat transition button over here so that the transition loops over and over. This way, you can focus on fixing the transition and making sure the timing is perfect. This will also help you with our next part, which is to really customize the transition. Now, you may have noticed the Studio tab as well over here on the right, and man, this one really shows the power of DJ Studio. Now, we'll utilize the playlist we loaded up over there. Starting off from here, we'll hit the Auto Mix button down here on the left to find the perfect combination for our selected tracks. Now, before DJ Studio does what it does best, a window will pop up with 3 different tabs: Auto Mix, Playlist Ordering, and Transitions. The first step is simply to let DJ Studio Auto Mix, which we already utilized in the previous basic video. The second tab here, Playlist Ordering, has multiple options you can tinker around with in order to have DJ Studio adjust the auto mixing of your music. First, you see the slider bar here, which allows you to change the priority of your auto mixing. Sliding it left will make DJ Studio prioritize BPM, which will result in a mix with a steady and progressive BPM flow. However, this will likely result in some non-harmonious transitions. Sliding it all the way right will prioritize key over BPM and will result in a completely harmonious mix as much as possible with the tracks you've selected, but may result in some extremely wild BPM jumps if your selected BPM range is that wide. Though it's up to your personal preference, I prefer to keep this slider in the middle and let DJ Studio do its thing in finding the best balance between BPM and key for a harmonious mix. Here, to the right, you'll see another drop-down tab listing the various analyzing times you can give DJ Studio to auto-mix your music. The longer you go, the more combinations you can get. However, I doubt you'll need to go for the longer times, given how efficient DJ Studio is at auto-mixing music. Below that, you'll see 2 options to lock in your first and last tracks as well, so if you want to bookend your mix with specific tracks, then DJ Studio's got you covered there. The final tab in this window allows you to customize how DJ Studio does its transitions with the auto-mix feature. The first option we have here, Transition Style, sets a default transition style for all your mixes. We have the default DJ Studio presets, namely Bass Swap, Crossfade, High to Low, Low to High, and Echo Out. Choosing one of these will automatically have DJ Studio apply them to all your transitions once you hit Auto Mix. I'd highly recommend familiarizing yourself with each transition first and selecting which one best fits your needs before selecting one to use on your current project. Over here to the right, you have an option to adjust the transition length. And for those of you who are wondering, a bar is typically 4 beats, which is common in most dance music genres. However, personally, I'd rather let DJ Studio decide on the length and utilize the automatic option here. Next, we can toggle Synchronized Tempo, which has DJ Studio beat match tracks for you as a transition is happening. This is arguably one of the most useful features of AutoMix, as it does most of the heavy lifting that makes a mix a mix. On the right side, you can see the option to have DJ Studio start the beat sync either immediately at the start of the transition with the full mix option or at the halfway point with the second half option. Below these, you have the Mix In and Mix Out point options. Here, you can adjust where in your tracks you'd want DJ Studio to start mixing in or mixing out. You have the option to start the mix in 0 bars, 1 bar, 4 bars, 8 bars, or 16 bars after the start of your song. You also have the same options for how many bars you'd want to start mixing out before your song ends. So it could be 16 bars before the end of your song, 8 bars, etc. Now this is highly track dependent, so I'd recommend leaving this on automatic and adjusting it manually later on. Once you're done making your adjustments, hit that auto mix button and let's get everything in order. Now, speaking of order, DJ Studio does its best to place all the tracks in the best order possible, with thousands, if not millions, of possible combinations to get things right. However, sometimes we want certain songs to be together in the mix despite them not being harmonious with each other. Chalk it up to personal preferences or whatnot. In this case, we can head over to the Playlist tab up here and easily reorder our songs. Here you'll see each track's title, artist, transition parameters, length, key, energy, and harmonic match. On the very left side, you'll see a group of 6 circles, which you can click on to drag a track around in the playlist to change its position. Now, doing this after already auto-mixing your music will result in some changes on the right side, namely in this column. This column shows you how exactly the tracks are harmoniously mixed based on DJ Studio's algorithm. They can be perfectly matched, energy boosted, diagonally mixed, or in some cases not harmoniously mixed at all. Now, for those of you wondering as well, what is all this harmonious mixing about? Well, harmonious mixing is when 2 mixed songs are either in the same key or in complementary keys. Using our examples here, we can see that 2 songs are in the key of 9A, and hearing both of them together shows that they sound great when mixed.
Sexy for my shirt, too sexy for my shirt, so sexy it hurts. I'm too sexy for my...
It's the same case for songs that are either 1 key up, 1 key down, or on the major or minor scale of the same key. Quickly pulling up the Camelot wheel, which I personally use for my mixing, we can see which keys complement each other. A deeper look at this is available on a blog post on DJ Studio's website, and I highly recommend reading it to learn more about the ins and outs of harmonious mixing. That way, you can determine ways beyond DJ Studio's standard algorithm to find the perfect song blends. So, once you're done with the playlist section, let's move on to the Studio tab, which is arguably the most complex portion of DJ Studio. This tab allows you to edit your track, control your beat grid, completely customize each transition, and more. Down below, you'll see that the Studio tab opens 8 more editing modes for you to choose from. The first one on the very left is the Zoom tab, and this allows you to zoom in and out of your timeline without any of the other options visible, so you can completely focus on the transitions. The second tab opens up your playlist, similar to how it is on the upper playlist tab. To the right, you'll see more tabs for your samples, your master output, effects, video, and track. The Effects tab opens up a whole range of effects to play around with, while the Track tab opens up your track's info. Now, before we really dive into the Transition tab, we have to make sure each song on our timeline is aligned with the beat grid. This makes sure that DJ Studio properly aligns the music and mixes them properly while doing transitions. The first thing we'll do is open up the Tracks tab and select one of our songs, zoom in, and click on this button here to nudge the track's beat grid. This should make the song's beat grid pop up, and you can check if your track is properly aligned. Clicking on the left arrow will nudge your beat grid left, and clicking on the right arrow will nudge it right. If the tracks are already properly on the beat grid, there's no need to adjust this setting. At times, despite its best efforts, DJ Studio may not always get the correct first beat in a song. This typically occurs in remixes which don't start on beat, have extra elements at the beginning, and the like. So, to remediate this, we can select the first beat button here and adjust our track's first beat like this. This ensures that our songs start on beat and are properly mapped to the beat grid all the way through. Once you've checked all your songs for their alignment, we can move to the Transition tab. Now, as you can see, the Transition tab gives you a wide range of parameters to play around with for your transitions. On the very left, we have the preset transition types we saw earlier in the video, but you'll notice over here there are some slots for your own presets. Once you've tinkered around with your transitions and found one you'd like to constantly use, you can save those transitions there for future use. Now, how exactly do you make these new transitions? Well, we have all the different elements that make up the transition. First, we have the volume window, where you can choose the different ways you want your volume levels to interact during the transition. Crossfade will have one track's volume fade out gradually as the next one comes in. Fade in will have your next track's volume come in, while the previous track keeps playing along, while the fade out option will have the new song come in at full volume, whereas your previous track will gradually fade away. Besides these options, you can also dictate how far into the transition you want the parameters to trigger, with 4 options: 25, 50, 75, and 100%. You can see how this adjusts the volume markers on the timeline, showing you where the volume comes in and dips out. Another option here is to have the volume swap out, with options to let this either run for 1, 2, or 4 bars. 0, of course, means this option is off. This is best used in conjunction with the other parameters we'll be discussing later on, as using this alone will sharply cut the volume of your previous track and suddenly play the next song out of nowhere. Finally, bookending this, you have the manual option, which gives you complete control over your volume. This option is also available for all other parameters except for effect in and effect out, so for the rest we'll focus on the parameters DJ Studio can help you out with. Once you've mastered all of the built-in parameters, you can go all out and have fun with the manual setting. Moving on, we have the bass window, where similarly to the volume settings, you can play around with the way your track's bass frequencies interact with one another. The way the bass parameters play around is similar to how they interact in the volume option, so I won't dive too deep into this anymore. The same can be said as well for the mid and high frequencies over on the right. I will mention that finding the right balance with all three is necessary to ensure your tracks sound as sonically similar to each other as possible after the transition is done. As a quick breakdown, in case you're wondering which channel affects what part of the song, bass usually adjusts your track's lower frequencies, like the kick drum, bass notes, or lower percussions. The mid usually adjusts the track's melody, vocals, and other similar elements. The high finally adjusts the higher frequencies, like cymbals, hi-hat percussion, higher notes, and the like. Finding the perfect EQ settings for transitions will take quite a bit of balancing and work, but you'll find that getting the right result is always worth it. As a quick detour, let's direct our attention to the frames right beside our track here. So you can see there are 4 knobs here that also affect your low, mid, high, and trigger a filter. With these, DJ Studio also allows you to play around with your track's EQ and add a filter effect while the song itself is playing. Moving any of these knobs will cause a broken line to pop up on the song's waveforms. Dragging it up and down will either increase or decrease the option selected like so. Now, left-clicking on this line allows you to add points where you can adjust the parameters on your waveform. So, for example, you can drop the bass here and add a filter effect to the same music area. Above these knobs, you can also see a volume slider that will do the same thing to your tracks and allow you to play around and adjust your volume, with the ability to customize where your tracks get quieter and louder as well. Once you're done playing around with this set of EQs, let's go back to the Transition tab. Now, besides adjusting your track's EQ levels, DJ Studio can also inject some effects to make your mix sound even more like what you'd hear in bars and clubs. Between all the EQ windows, you'll see these 5 windows labeled Filter, Noise, Effect In, Effect Out, and Sidechain. These essentially add extra flair to your transitions, and they can give your mix that special sparkle to make each transition stand out even more. First, there's the filter window. Here you'll see presets, high to low and low to high. The filter effect acts like the filter knobs you'll see on many DJ controllers and mixers, with DJ Studio being the one to turn the knob for you while transitioning between tracks. Utilizing high to low will slowly filter out your first song while slowly bringing in the second song. Low to high does the opposite, with your next track slowly being filtered in as the transition goes on. Similar to the volume and EQ options, you have the option here to dictate where you want the filter effect to take place during the transition. Here we have the noise window, which adds a noise effect to your transition. This is widely popular in clubs and is featured on many high-end DJ mixes as an effect to add color to one track. Back here, you have the choices of riser, down sweep, and swish, which all create very different types of noise effect patterns for your transitions. The parameters for each type of noise effect also change where it starts and where it ends. Each number from 0 to 100 represents where in the mix you want your noise effect to start and where you want it to end, with 0 being the start, 50 being the midway point, and 100 being at the very end before your next track comes in. Next, we have the effect in, an extremely useful option for those who have songs with short intros. Now, loop in essentially loops a particular number of beats of your next song while doing the transition before letting the song play once the transition block ends. For this, you have the option to let the song loop for 1 beat, 2 beats, 4 beats, 8 beats, or 16 beats. Do take note, the numbers here don't refer to bars, but rather to the number of beats, so keep that in mind. Like I mentioned, using this particular option is very useful for songs with short intros. So if you want your songs to still have long blends despite their short intros, this would be the best option for that. The second parameter for effect in, which I personally find awesome, is key swap. Now this makes the songs change their keys at some point in the transition. If your songs have a jump in keys, even after DJ Studio auto mixes them, this can help make your transition smoother by key syncing your 2 tracks. You even have the option for them to key swap every few beats, so it sounds like you're switching in and out of keys to ease in your next music song. Finally, we have the effect out window, which applies to the tracks being mixed out of when doing transitions. This is arguably one of the most important effects applied during actual DJ mixing, so having this in DJ Studio really ups the ante for those wanting to add flair to their mixes. First up, we have the option to loop out with similar parameters to the previously discussed loop in option, so you can have your outgoing track loop 1 beat, 2 beats, and so on, depending on what you see fit. Next, we have the reverb option, with parameters to make your reverb blast either 50, 75, or 100%. Next, we have the echo out option, my personal favorite, as this is what I use all the time in my actual club mixes and DJ Studio mixes. So here, you have options to let the echo last 1/4 of a beat, 1/2 of a beat, 3/4 of a beat, 1 beat, or 2 beats. Personally, I prefer to keep mine set at 1/2, as this gives the tightest echo out without the previous song interfering with the next track. Finally, we have sidechain, which adds a neat filter effect to your transition. This is very similar to the high-pass or low-pass filters you have on DJ mixers or the crush effect. You have the option to cross-fade this with different parameters, which is similar to the pass filters, or swap it 1, 2, or 4 bars before the switch. The latter is similar to using the crush effect on DJ mixers. One thing to take note of as well is how, by default, your effect in and effect out occurs in the very middle of the transition block. If you want to change where these effects will occur, simply click on this purple arrow here, once you've selected your effect, and move it around to where you desire. Now you have your transitions all nicely laid out, and you've got all your tracks in place. But one glaring issue may remain: the transitions are too long. Some tracks run out before the transition is even done, and all you have are quiet drums from the intro of your next song. Don't worry, DJ Studio's got you covered. I showed you how to lengthen or shorten your transition block on the timeline. However, DJ Studio can help make this easier as well. With the 4 buttons here labeled 4, 8, 16, and 32, these buttons denote how long in bars you want your transition to be. I like keeping mine very tight, so 4 works for the most part for me, but for those of you who like doing long blends, 32 bars should be right up your alley. Selecting a transition block and selecting one of these numbers will change your transition block's length for you. To the right of that, you have 3 buttons labeled free, half, and full. These buttons dictate where you want DJ Studio to start changing the BPM during the transition. Half will start at halfway through your transition, and full will start at the moment your transition block begins. Free gives you full creative control on this matter. Speaking of control, looking at the left side, you can also toggle the auto or manual modes for your BPMs. Going for manual mode allows you to adjust your BPMs like this and even change your song's BPMs completely. With this, should you desire, you can play your song slower or faster to make some wild new transitions. Adjusting this is similar to adjusting the aforementioned EQs above it, so click and drag away.
I'm too sexy for Milan, too sexy for Milan, New York and Japan, too sexy for Japan. I'm too sexy for my shirt, too sexy for my shirt, so sexy it hurts. I'm too sexy for...
Next, we have the lock button, which locks your transition in place, making sure nothing changes it. And we have the solo button, which toggles each track so you can listen to how each track is affected by your chosen transition options. This is especially useful when listening to sonically similar tracks, so you can make sure that each track has been properly adjusted to create the perfect transition. Finally, we have the metronome button. A handy list of keyboard shortcuts that comes up as a pop-up, and the zoom in and zoom out buttons just in case you don't have a wheel on your mouse to magnify your timeline. Now, if you recall, we previously briefly touched upon the video tab here in the studio section of DJ Studio. Beyond just adding colorful visuals to your auto mixes, you can actually expand and customize these visuals to create a truly unique auditory and visual experience with your mix. Each of these options can be applied to each individual song and not just the entire mix, so you'll never run out of things to do per track. Over here on the background settings, you'll see the types of backgrounds we can utilize. Each of these settings can be applied to different tracks, so you can really customize how you want your entire mix to look. First, with animation, as you've seen in the previous Local Files module, you can have DJ Studio cycle through different animation styles to complement your mix. You can quickly cycle through all of them or simply choose random to let DJ Studio choose animations for you. If you choose random, you can also choose how long you want to let the animation style run before it changes, with options for 8 to 64 bars available. Next, we have Shader Toy, which is another fun way of adding visuals to your mix. If you've ever been a fan of rap or concert backgrounds with different and trippy 3D visuals, that's what Shader Toy is. This allows you to have procedurally generated 3D imagery to accompany your tracks in real time, and DJ Studio has a great database of various videos as well. You can even add your own Shader Toy videos from their website and sync your video to the beat of your music. Shader Toy in itself has an awesome website filled with these visuals, so I highly recommend checking them out. Now, if you'd prefer to have a static image, you can do so as well by uploading an image to be displayed as a background of your mix. You can change the image per track too, so it doesn't get too stale. You also have the option to have a static color as your background, and you can select your desired color by doing this. And finally, you have the option to have your track's album artwork pop up in the background too. This is similar to how it's usually done on YouTube topic videos, though I recommend looking through your tracks to see whether or not they have album artwork in their ID3 tags before committing to this. Tracks without any artwork will pull up a fairly boring default image, and we wouldn't want to drop the energy in your mix's visuals. Next up, we have the option to display your track's information. You have the option to have it displayed on the top, center, or bottom part of your screen. Below this, you have a set of different options to play around with to add a little extra visual flair on your screen. You have two checkboxes for particles and the waveline. One will add a pretty cool particle effect on your video, and the other adds a waveline in the middle of the screen to more properly visualize your audio. Below that, you have the Spectrum Analyzer, which comes in two styles as you can see, and will change its position on your screen depending on where you decide to place your track information. You can also adjust the intensity of the spectrum to make it larger and adjust its blur to make it duller or sharper, depending on which style works best for you. Now, you may be wondering, how do the animations, images, and whatnot all transition from one track to another? The answer is a set of transitions available right here on DJ Studio under the Transition tab. You can customize the way your visuals blend into one another. This can be a simple crossfade, an iris wipe, a heart, and many more. Playing around with all these different types of transitions will give you ideas on which one works best with the genres you choose. Dynamic and exciting visual transitions will always help elevate the auditory experience for your audience. Likewise, you can even pick out how long you'd want the visual transition to be, from a short 8 beats to a fairly lengthy 64 beats. Below that, you also have global text in case you want to add some text to your video as well. This can be anything you desire, such as your name, your mix's name, etc. Once you've properly fixed your transition blocks, made all your adjustments, and fixed up your video edits, if you wanted a video mix, you're then ready to hit export. Now, you'll notice that you have a wide variety of ways to export your newly made mix. One of these is the already previously discussed local file, which allows you to save your mix as an MP3 or WAV file for future playback. Now, for local files, you also have the option to save your full video mix with a variety of quality choices: 720p, 1080p, and a fairly high-definition 2160p. Below this, you have the option to export your mix as a DJ set so that you can export DJ Studio's AutoMix setlist to your DJ programs. You have the option to do it via M3U8 or TXT, and the option as well to include all the original audio along with your file. Next, for all you Ableton users out there, you can also export this project as an Ableton file with two different options: vertical and horizontal. Personally, I use the horizontal option. Finally, other than the option to back up your project, you also have the option to upload this mix straight to your Mixcloud as an audio project. All you'll need to do is log into your Mixcloud account with DJ Studio. Next, we're going through a few of the tools in the Studio view that will unlock creative flexibility in your mixes, such as how to make selections within our songs using split markers and phrase detection, cutting up, looping, and removing sections of tracks to tailor them to our mix. Jumping into the studio view to look at some examples, I've just finished transitioning from Deck 1 into DJ Cuba's Calabria on Deck 2, and I feel like the melody in Calabria is coming in pretty strong straight after the transition. Here, I prefer this part over here after the first drop and want to copy it over to use it coming out of our transition. To do that, we first need to make a selection within the song. I'm going to place my cursor on the first beat we want to start our selection, press and hold Shift. The cursor changes into the selection tool, and now I'll click and drag to select an area of the track. When I let go, a context menu pops up with a bunch of options for editing our selection. In fact, if you ever have anything highlighted in DJ Studio, you can right-click to bring up this menu. I'm going to choose Copy, then I'll head back over and click to move my playhead to the first beat after the transition, which in this case is the first beat of what's called the breakdown. I'll right-click, choose Paste, and there's the part of the song that we selected. Of course, we can edit more than just a few beats of a track. Let's try copying this entire part of the song, which is our second breakdown, right through building up into the second drop. A great way to make large as well as precise selections within our track is using split markers. First, I'll click to place my playhead at the start of the second breakdown. Then, down at the bottom of our timeline, just below the tempo lane, we can press the split button to insert a split marker on the beat. You'll see that's represented now by a dotted line through the track. Heading over to the end of the build, the beauty of split markers is that we aren't holding down keys or mouse selections, so we're free to zoom in or out and can even listen to make sure we found the right spot.
Yeah.
I'm feeling confident, so I'll place the playhead at the end of the build as we go into the chorus, click the split button again, or use the keyboard shortcut Command or Control plus E, and the area between the two split markers is now selected. I'll choose Copy, and then back over in the first breakdown, place my playhead, right-click and paste in our selection. When we paste audio in DJ Studio, it will insert at our playhead, making room for itself by pushing back the audio already at that part of the song. Nothing gets overwritten. The side effect is, though, that here, where we would expect to go into the drop, we actually end up going into the original first breakdown, which has been pushed back each time we've pasted a selection. We've looked at copying parts of a song, but being able to move or remove them is just as important. Of course, we can also just remove sections of audio entirely. I'm using split markers, so I'll place my playhead where I want to start the selection and press Command plus E. With this split marker placed, I'll come across to the end of this part that I want to delete. I'll position my playhead over here where the second drop starts and press Command plus E again. The right-click context menu appears, and we can choose Delete. The highlighted audio is deleted, which in this case was the second breakdown that I made a copy of earlier. Quickly checking that copy, it's still there and not affected by having removed the original. On that note, none of the edits you make to your songs in your DJ Studio projects are going to save or overwrite anything in the original files. We're only editing their audio in this project. And if you decide at any point you simply want to start fresh or remove the edits you've made on a particular track, with the song selected, come down to Edit and choose Reset All Track Edits. When it comes to transitioning out of Calabria, I've got an idea that will combine a few of the editing tools that we've covered, as well as demonstrate the last tool that I want to talk about, how we can loop a section of our track. Halfway through this part of the song, the drums kick in and the energy builds as we head into the second drop. What I'd like to do is switch things up by creating a loop within the build, creating a little bit of anticipation, and then quickly mix into the next song but mix straight into the chorus. This part here, where the kick drum cuts out, I think this is how I'm going to start my loop. I'm going to select 4 beats by holding Shift, clicking and dragging. And then in the context menu, right at the top, is the loop option. Just before we select it though, remember the keyboard shortcut Command or Control plus D, click Loop, and now those 4 beats are duplicated directly after. Our selection is still highlighted though, so we can press Command plus D on the keyboard, and the selection is looped again. Dragging over the transition window into my next song, you can see it's nothing too complicated, just using the volume and bass fade-in presets to gradually blend from one song to the other. And that's all we need because most of the work is going to be done by our loop. Now, we're going to be talking about transition basics. Learning how to DJ and creating mixtapes. It's easy to feel overwhelmed with all the different DJ terminology, so we're taking it back to the fundamentals with an introduction to transitions. What exactly are they, and what tools do we have inside DJ Studio to create them? We'll explain the principles of EQ, how we divide up the sounds in our songs. Finally, we'll clarify some of that remaining terminology as well as customizing transitions using manual automation. Let's jump into DJ Studio. I've added a few songs and we're currently in the Studio tab. Near the top of our timeline, you'll see the numbers 1, 2, 3, etc. And if we click on one of these numbers, it'll zoom in automatically. Now, we see that these numbers correspond to the transitions between our songs. The transition consists of two songs overlapping, and it's the time where we move the focus from one song to the next. What this sounds like and what exactly happens during the transitions is entirely up to your creativity. You could introduce the next song gradually, or you could mix quickly between songs. DJ Studio helps visualize this time by wrapping it in what we call transition windows. The transition window surrounds the time where the songs overlap, and on either side of the transition window, you'll see that the waveforms of our songs are faded out before the window. We don't need to be accidentally playing parts of the song we're about to mix into. During the window, both songs are audible, and we can move from one song to the next. Then, once our transition is complete, we've moved into the new song, and we no longer need to hear the previous song. Of course, we can change what parts of our songs are within the transition window and audible, either by clicking the bar at the top of the song that we're mixing into and dragging to move it within the transition window, or we can click the bar at the top of the transition window itself to move its location within the song that we're mixing out of. Making sure that your transition window is selected and that you're on the transition tab, just to the left of our playback controls, you see the numbers 4, 8, 16, and 32. These change the duration of our transition window. Of course, you can also fine-tune the exact transition duration that you need. Simply click and drag the tabs on either side of the transition window to shorten or lengthen as required. With the two songs overlapping, the simplest way that we can move from one song to the next is by controlling the gain or volume of our song. To do that, let's take a look at our transition tab again. This is where we control everything that happens inside our transition window, including the use of transition presets. For now, let's just focus on the volume category and choose crossfade. With a crossfade, at the start of our transition window, the song that we're mixing out of will start at 100% volume. At the same time, the song that we're mixing into starts with its volume turned down and slowly increases over the duration of the transition. The transition is complete, and we've successfully moved from one song to the next. Volume, how loud a song is a fundamental component of a DJ transition. However, every song and every transition is unique. Different instrumentation can mean that two songs blend together and complement each other, but it can mean that loud sounds clash or drown out the quieter sounds. These situations need more control than just turning the volume of everything up or down. We instead divide up a song's volume into low, mid, and high EQ, short for equalization. The low band, often referred to as the bass EQ, is where all of our low-frequency sounds live. Kick drums, bass lines. The swap preset in our bass category is a great example of using EQ in transitions, more than simply fading volume up or down to move the listener's attention. If we swap the bass by turning the bass EQ volume down on one song while simultaneously increasing it to full volume on the next song, you feel the energy shift from one song to the next. Speaking of our other bands, let's jump to the other end and talk about our high EQ. Here you'll find bright and crisp high-frequency sounds like hi-hats, cymbals, and effects. In fact, many songs can have lots of high-frequency sounds in them, which is fine when we listen to them on their own, but becomes problematic when we want to overlap and mix them together. We can come to our high category and select the fade out preset. Set to 100%, it will gradually fade out the volume of those high-frequency sounds in the song that we're mixing out of. Between our low and our high band is our middle or mid EQ, and this will give us control over things like vocals, piano, or really most lead instruments. These sounds often do have parts that cross into the low or high EQ bands, but the majority of their volume can be controlled with the mid EQ. Choosing the fade-in preset, the sounds within the mid EQ band start with their volume turned down and then slowly fade in throughout the duration of the transition. Of course, you're not limited to choosing just one preset, and more often than not, you'll want to combine or perhaps even manually customize a few to create the style of transition you think suits any given song best. Let's rapid-fire through the different preset names and DJ terms you'll find when creating transitions in DJ Studio. Each transition preset has a parameter next to it, and this can be adjusted to customize how that preset is applied. Fades are the process of increasing or decreasing an effect or control, often volume or EQ, gradually over a duration of time. Fade-in starts the transition with the selected control turned down on the song that we're mixing into, and gradually increases that control throughout the transition. We can also do the opposite using fade-out, which starts the transition with the selected control turned up on the song that we're mixing out of, and then gradually decreases it throughout the transition. Crossfades increase a control, like volume or EQ, on one song while decreasing the same control on the other song, and the movement as these controls fade up and down, respectively, visually forms an X or cross shape. Unlike the crossfade, in a swap, the control is switched from on to off instantly on the song we are mixing out of, and at the same time swapped from off to on the song that we're mixing into. Swap fade is a hybrid of the crossfade and the swap. It's not as gradual as the crossfade, but rather it smoothly swaps the control's on-off state rather than just flipping them instantly. Presets and their parameters are a solid starting point for creating transitions. However, for full control, switch a category to manual mode. We're now able to click and add points or nodes to the line in the transition window, representing adjustments to a category. This is a process called automation, creating adjustments to automatically occur during our transition. Each category has a unique color automation line. However, if you do get mixed up about which is which, click the solo button next to the category to isolate that automation line for clear adjustments. Then, unsolo it to view all the automation lines again. If you create a transition with the favorite combination of presets and manual automation, in the Transition tab's Presets panel, click Save, name your preset, and it will be saved inside of My Presets, ready to be applied to future transitions in just one click.
Assignment 13, DJ Studio. Create a remix of 3 music tracks of your own using DJ Studio. It is very important for all Gen AI Rockstar students to remember that you must complete all your assignments in each module and email them to ROU Education to obtain the Asia Pacific Adventures Diploma and Royal Oxford University degree. Practice daily to become a pro, enhance your career and business opportunities with a better income. Yes, you can. Congratulations and thank you very much to all the Gen AI Rockstar students and to everyone who supported and contributed to this degree in AI graphic design and video skills project. Life is beautiful and we wish you all continued good health and prosperity. Acknowledged by Asia Pacific Adventures. Recognized by Royal Oxford University.